Hugh, does that sound familiar?
Is that the sound of sweeping?
Sweeping it is. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of Rugby Scoop Podcast. As usual, I'm not by myself. I'm not alone today. I'm joined by the stats man, the stats guru, Hugh Griffin, all the way from England. But he's Welsh, guys. He's Welsh. Just be careful. He's the host of the fastest growing podcast called Pirates Rugby Pod. And the Blue Man, Jade Craig, the voice of rugby, could also be the voice of reason sometimes, Mr. Heatwave. Hugh, starting off with you, mate. How are things going over there? How was your weekend?
It's going good, mate. It's beautiful weather here in the middle of England at the moment. I'm going to get out in the garden, maybe try and tackle the lawn for the first time this year in a bit. And yeah, weekend's treating me well. I can't believe we're about to spend an hour talking about the Scarlets win over Benetton.
Good one. Jade, Heatwave, no more.
Yeah, no more. Like the win at Eden Park for the Blues the weekend. I think we can spend an hour talking of that. You know, it hasn't come in the past 10 years. I think we can spend an hour talking on that. Not every day, my beloved Blues team beats the Crusaders. So yeah, I'll milk that for a while. And I'll eat more nails in the coffin, but no more heat waves.
Scarlets and the Blues. Scarlets and the Blues. Gentlemen, Vuyo is also still not with us again this weekend. They've got a few tournaments in the upcoming weeks, so we should probably see him around mid-April, unfortunately, playing rugby in snow in Russia. Before we get started, gents, let's have a look at some of the news making headlines this past week. Sansa came out with a statement regarding rugby championship expansion. So there are no plans to expand the competition for at least until 2032, which is quite a lengthy period, to be honest. There were talks of adding other teams like Japan, like Fiji into the competition, but I guess those plans now are in the back burner at this point in time. Western Province Rugby Union has officially been acquired by Red Disa Consortium, or is it Disa? I don't know how to pronounce that word. But anyway, it's great news nonetheless for the community in Western Province. At least now they've got the coffers to support any acquisitions that they might want going forward, and also keep a lot of players within their stable for the couple of seasons. And also there's rumors around surrounding Jasper Visa. Apparently, he might be making his way back. That's a developing story. Jade, when was the last time you put on a suit?
Sure.
You can't remember. 10 years ago. Anyway, with excuse me. Anyway, Makazole Mapimpi is now a fashionista as he's partnered up with Men Tailored Suits. So, yeah, Jade, if you are looking to wear a suit, you might as well jump on board and follow Makazole Mapimpi on that regard. Anyway, Ereklasse, Rugby Netherlands division. So the rugby was back this weekend. Results not so favorable for my club this past weekend as we went down 17-22 22 against HRC, a well-coached side, coached by an Australian guy as well. That's in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And then the Women's Six Nations kicked off this weekend. France beating Ireland 38-17. Scotland beating Wales 2018. Gentlemen, there's plenty to cover as always. There's a lot that's been taking place. We'll start off with Super Rugby as usual, and then we'll jump into the Scarlets session, as Hugh Griffin will call it. But yeah, Super Rugby, Jade, Mr. New Zealand, Mr. Rugby Down Under, Mr. Aotearoa. Yeah, I hope New Zealanders don't butcher me for this one. Jade, what are your thoughts this past weekend? I mean, any highlights from your side? And then maybe we can get into the nitty-gritty, the Fijian Drua. What an amazing feat. What an amazing club. What an amazing story from this particular club in these past 2 seasons of Super Rugby Pacific. Talk to me.
Yeah, you know what? What a breath of fresh air, Fijian Drua, what a breath of fresh air. But I'm not going to gloat too much about them because I think you jinxed them. We jinxed them on the spot. We've ramped up the Moana Pacifica, and the next week they got walloped. We ramped up the Reds, the next week they lost. We ramped up the Chiefs, the next week they lost. So I'm going to keep quiet regarding the Drua. I'll just talk on their performances. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed yesterday with the Blues because I'll go straight to that fixture after beating the Crusaders yesterday. I felt that, there was 5 points there for the taking. The Crusaders was nowhere. I've never seen a Crusaders team struggle like this at line-out time. I've never seen it. Missing first-time tackles. They were absolutely nowhere. I don't know what's going on there at that franchise, but you know what? Like I said, they've won it so many times. Long may it continue. It's fine. For the Blues, for me, the guys like Hoskins and Perry Toops put up their hand yesterday, in terms of, getting stuck in grinding out there. I mean, Hoskins made a few errors, handling errors in the start, knocked a few balls, but later on he came on and he was brilliant, He was brilliant. Perry Tupolotu in his 100th test match, he was absolutely brilliant as well. He carried hard, he won his lineouts, and I still feel that, the Blues let it out there. There was a bonus point they could have taken yesterday. They should have put the Crusaders to the sword and made a statement. They could have put 50 on them yesterday. After that period from second half, when they came out, they had so much possession, so much ball on the trail, and they copped it up, went for cross kicks instead of just getting the job done. And, if it was the Crusaders of old, they would have gave them a hiding. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with the victory against the Crusaders. I mean, you've never ever seen it. I mean, the last time Perry Tupolotu played in the game, he was, 20 years old when they beat the Crusaders, and I think he's close to 30 now. It was 10 years ago that they beat the Crusaders at Eden Park. So just shows you that, they don't get the rub of the green against the Crusaders. But yeah, as for the Crusaders, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, fair enough. In a spot of bother of the Crusaders, they seem to be directionless. Obviously, the set piece being a problem, especially the line out. I thought their scrums were pretty good in that first half, but as soon as they made changes, the Blues scrum basically became dominant in that second half. I think it was a dominant performance in the second half overall for the Auckland Blues side. Obviously, have not beaten the Crusaders in a very long time. This must be a sweet victory. Like you said about the whole 5-point element, I think there's a trend for me that I'm currently seeing, obviously, with regards to the New Zealand teams. I mean, it also goes back to the Chiefs and the Highlanders, for example. I think the Chiefs, yes, they were pretty much in control, but not a lot in that particular game. But I felt the Highlanders left so many points, man. In that first half, I think they probably had 4 or 5 visits into the Chiefs 22. Each time they visited the Chiefs 22, they actually got penalties in kickable positions, right? That's 15 points if you get those. I mean, they've got a very good kicker as well. I think he's averaging roughly about in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But there were kickable kicks that they could have gotten 3 points in that particular game. Also with the Crusaders going for touch when they could have just kept scoreboard pressure. I mean, this goes back to what Razor was saying, Scott Robertson, the new New Zealand coach right now, what he was saying on the breakdown. looking at how teams are winning games at international level or at this professional level, right? He said everything was being won by the boot. And if your coach is thinking in that way, right, you would assume that this will filter down through to the Super Rugby teams, whereby if you enter the opposition 22, yes, I understand the whole aspect of trying to score tries, making the game look all glamorous, but at the end of the day, you're playing at a high level, people that are highly equipped to defend and actually close you off and actually try and prevent you from scoring. And if that doesn't happen, surely you go for 3, right? If you don't actually score points. And I was really frustrated just watching the Highlanders. And then eventually the Highlanders in the last 15 minutes of the game, they score 3 quick tries, which they converted, right? That takes them to 21 points. But now if you add the other 5 points that they left in the first half, you like, come on, gents, come on. I mean, it's not rocket. Rugby is not rocket science, guys. At the end of the day, yes, people want to see the razzle dazzle, the exciting footy. But at the end of the day, you want to win matches, right? You want to win matches. You want to get consistency. You want to get those points. Also, that's how you bring people to the stadiums, by winning matches. Now, if you're not winning matches and you leave 15 points, do you think you're still going to bring a number of people to the stadium to come and watch you? It was frustrating to watch. Anyway, is there another game for you, Jade, that you thought maybe stuck out from this past weekend?
Yeah, no, look, I'll touch quickly on that point, that you made in terms of the 3 points. I just can't understand it as well, because even if you're chasing the bonus point, it's difficult to get a bonus point in Super Rugby because you got to score 3 more tries than the other team instead of scoring 4, where it's in European rugby, it's 4 tries and you get a bonus point. So it's difficult to get a bonus point overall in Super Rugby, and especially this season where, it's been more competitive. There's no blowovers against Australian teams or so. So the mindset is not there. And also, I want to touch a little bit on the Highlanders because I felt that, the players that are performing, if you look at it, if you look at Holland, if you look at Billy Harmon, if you look at Jacob Reiterbeit, the Wookie Nipkins, if you look at Tavanawa, you look at all of those guys standing out, they're real standout performers. However, the big problem is the individuals, I don't know how you feel about that.
Posing a question to me. Yes, I think to some degree, yes, they're individuals, but I mean, looking at what they're trying to build over there, with Jamie Joseph also as the director of rugby, I think obviously they've got a very young squad, they've got a very young team, they still need to build together. I guess that foundation only starts when you start winning games as well. The confidence comes in, the structures are in place, and you build momentum, like I was saying earlier, with regards to creating a winning culture. But yeah, I think obviously the inexperience to some degree probably adds to the frustrating element of them not actually playing cohesively at times. But I mean, when they play, they actually look very good. I mean, they had territory possession in that game. They had ball possession in that game. The Chiefs didn't have a lot of ball in that game, but when the Chiefs had the ball, they scored tries. But when Highlanders had the ball, I mean, they had to go through phases upon phases and actually getting exhausted by doing that, and then still go for touch. And I'm like, geez, Oaks, go for 3 points, build scoreboard pressure, and start again.
I think it was Marshall. Was it Marshall? Who was a commentator there? But he summed it up at the end perfectly, where he say that Rakamai Tawiti Nekans put in a chip, and he fielded the chip, and he actually summarized it well. He said that he didn't put the chip in for the team, he did it for himself, he's playing for himself. So there's a lot of individual players in that team. And once they get that cohesiveness, team cohesiveness in that Highlander squad, I don't know how long it will take, but I think there's a few guys playing for the black jersey there, and they're very they're playing individually. And I still think that they can get more structure, they can get a better game plan, they will be much better, But all in all, I think, Scoop, waking up, what time did you wake up? Did you wake up at 2 a.m. to watch the Drua against the Tahs? I woke up at 3, and it was, sorry for my language, but it was absolutely fucking worth it.
The kids are listening. Yeah, no, I only watched like the first half, but then I passed out, unfortunately. I mean, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and I had a rugby game later on in the afternoon on Saturday. Practically impossible. I think Hugh might have woken up at 2 a.m. actually. Hugh?
No, so I woke up at just gone 5 a.m. on Saturday to watch the Formula One, which I wish I hadn't. And I actually managed to watch some Japanese rugby, which is now on Rugby Pass here in the UK. So I managed to watch a bit of, I want to say, Sun Goliath against Spears, maybe. I can't remember. But anyway, I caught some Japanese rugby. But I did catch most, if not all, of the Blues Crusaders game. I couldn't believe, I tweeted about it after the game. The Blues had like all of their ball in the Crusaders 22 and they scored 2 tries. Like they had advantage. I think I messaged both of you guys about this afterwards. They had advantage on the Crusaders line multiple times and didn't give the ball to the backs. They just kept going and the Crusaders kept holding them out. Like it was like they were trying not to win that game. And it looks like the Crusaders might do a smash and grab at one point, but just nowhere near it. I caught some of the Moana game. A bit disappointed. I think they came up against the Brumbies, who I think shows why they are traditionally the best Australian team.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what else I caught. I haven't watched the highlights of the Drua yet, but I intend to. I think I watched some of Hurricanes against, was it Rebels? And yeah, the Hurricanes. I caught it when the game was already over, so I didn't tune in until the second half.
Yeah.
But that was a very classic Super Rugby game. Of the game was over, the New Zealand team had put up a big score, so people were just throwing it around. I saw Tupou's line break though. I saw when he went 50 meters. That was entertaining. So a pretty typical game of Super Rugby, I would call that one.
Yeah, and also Hugh, sticking with you, you also posted stats for Iosefo Masi.
Iosefo Masi, yes, the Drua centre. So, like I say, I haven't actually watched the game yet, but I caught up on the stats on the Super Rugby's excellent stats website. If you like your stats, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, he's
Masi,
been amazing.
5 tries in 2 games.
Yeah,
last 2 games. Hat-trick, obviously, yesterday. Doing all the things, when you compare the stats of different players, like in the forwards, particularly the back rowers, is where you see all the big carrying and tackling stats. And then in the back 3, in the backs, is where you see all of the meters and defenders beaten and things stats. So centres sometimes can have stats that are kind of unassuming. They may be like, made 5 tackles out of 6, they made 50-ish meters, they made 2 or 3 passes and things like that. And they don't stand out, especially outside centres, only really get the ball, don't touch the ball very much in the game. But this guy is having a hell of a season. Naisalevu is obviously for Fiji the captain, and I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. I hope not, because I want to see more of him and Randrandra playing together in the Fijian shirt. But Masi, I think, if Naisalevu is ever not available, he's got to be the next cab off the rank for the Fijian, the Flying Fijians in that 13 jersey, because if he keeps playing like this, he's going to be undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw a tweet from Simon Rauluni, former Fijian coach, said the guy who's has been converted from 7 playing flanker to a 13. I mean, that's outstanding. Looking at speed, looking at the strength. But I saw maybe 1 or 2 passes where I was like, oh, okay, maybe now it makes sense that he was a flanker. Yeah, but I'm sure they will help him with the few skill sets going forward, the passing and maybe positioning on D at times. But what a game in Fiji! Congratulations to Fiji, guys. The results from this past weekend: Force upsetting the Reds 40-31. Blues beating the Crusaders 26-6. You had the Chiefs beating Highlanders 28-21. Fijian Drua on the buzzer. What a freaking result. 39-36 against the Waratahs. You had the Brumbies beating Moana Pacifica 60-21. You have Hurricanes thrashing the Rebels 54-28. Jade.
Yeah, no, I just want to apologize, to everybody, because last week I asked a quick question, is Brex one of the best 13s in the world, or one of the best 13s in the world on current form? And I completely forgot of Naya Selevu. And then now we've seen with Massa as well in Israel. What's his name? Radrada as well. So I think in Fiji, they really blessed at 13 at the moment, and where on earth does these playoffs that can kick to poles come from? Because there's ice in the veins of this playoff they got there. It's Armstrong Ravula. Absolute ice in his veins. I mean, this guy, he's solid. And we've seen it the same with Caleb once. And then Kemo Valentini comes and slots the most casual sidestepping dropkick I've ever seen, I don't know where this comes from Fiji, because they've all been well known. Their running team, but, kicking to poles have been very, very average, but well done to Fiji. I mean, they really impressed me, this Drua. I'm not going to talk too much of them because we just jinx teams on the spot, but well done to them.
Yes, Hugh.
So I'll just tell you a quick story. So I was chatting to a guy when I went to Twickenham to see England lose to Fiji. I was chatting to a guy there, and he's in the British Army, and he was telling me that there's a lot of Fijians in the British Army. I don't know all the reasons why, but there is a lot of them. And obviously they have rugby teams in the British Army. So all the Fijians turned up to play in the rugby team, and he asked them. He was going down the line and was going, right, what position do you play? And the Fijian guy went centre. Went to the next guy, like, where do you play? Centre. Okay, where do you play? Centre. Where do you play? Centre. And it's like, guys, some of you are going to have to play in the forwards. You can't all play in the centre.
Yeah, I think I love it. Well done. But yeah, congratulations to the Drua, man. They're doing fantastic work. As Jade said, a breath of fresh air to rugby. I mean, we need more of this. There are current conversations going around on social media about Georgia basically joining the Six Nations, about the Rugby Europe teams that are also growing in stature. I mean, if you look at the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium beating Portugal. Portugal were at the World Cup last year. I mean, things are turning, guys. We may be going into a decade of seeing a transition in rugby, where all the so-called tier 2 nations basically putting up their hand and showcasing how much they have developed over the years. And then maybe when money comes in with the sponsorship, things will get even better. Maybe looking at a trajectory of until maybe the next World Cup in 2031 in the States. Maybe things by then will have grown significantly. Gentlemen, done with Super Rugby, going back to the URC. As I've started the pod, there was a broom, there was sound, someone was sweeping, and it was the South African teams that were handling that broom in URC this past weekend. Sharks get their bite back. The Blue Bulls bully the Dragons. Lions roaring in Ireland with 14 men. Edinburgh can't handle the Cape Doctor. Do we owe Cash van Rooyen an apology, Jade?
Yeah, apology to Cash van Rooyen, but I'm not going to change my verdict on the 20-minute red card. That still stands, I think people's waiting for me to say that red cards does not spoil games. But well done to the Lions yesterday. I think they really came together as a unit after that red card. I thought that, Connacht would win the game when that red card came. I think the red card was soft. I wouldn't really give it as a red card, but yeah, well done to them. I mean, they made meters when they carried. Noamba and Jaden Hendricks controlled the game. They forwards, they scrum, they stood at scrum time. Even got the better of the Connacht pack at scrum time at times. They were awesome. I really didn't expect them to come away with a win, regardless 5 points from that Connacht game. Cash van Rooyen really the team as a unit, they stood together. It's those two stories where a team goes down to 14 men and they play better than what they play when they played with 15, and the team that plays with 15 men actually, they're just expecting to win the game, and that's where the Lions caught them off guard. they beat Connacht. I mean, I think that was Connacht's first loss in 10 games. The last team to beat them at home was Leinster, if I'm not mistaken. So that just shows you it's not an easy place to go to. And regardless of this young, inexperienced Lions team, they went there, they bossed the game, they dominated them. I really think, this was one of the best performances I've seen from this Lions team in a few years. Well done to them.
You with a scoop?
Oh, sorry. I was on mute. I'm busy talking to myself. Sorry. I was saying kudos to the Lions. I mean, a lot of people didn't expect this result as well. I mean, Cash van Rooyen, the Ricardo Loubsers, the Stains that are there, Jacques Fourie, that whole coaching staff has done a significant job in basically bringing back Lions rugby. Hopefully they continue with this momentum going forward.
The Lions are good. The only people who think that the Lions are bad are South Africans. Everybody outside South Africa is like, they're really good. I can't believe they sent off Nslabakanye. Even if he killed someone, I'd have left him on the pitch.
Tough. I mean, Hugh, I'll just let you in on a secret, man. Tough crowd are South Africans. You really need to be consistent in performances. You really need to, like, for example, I mean, a lot of people didn't think Rassie Erasmus would win back-to-back World Cups, if we're being honest. Had Rassie Erasmus probably lost in New Zealand in Wellington in 2018, a lot of knives would have come out, to be honest. But he proved the country wrong, came out with the results. And once you start coming with results, people start believing. And then once you're consistent in those results, people then start backing you. I mean, it goes back to the Blue Bulls. The Blue Bulls have never been terrible, but they weren't as gelled up as they look now.
I was looking at an old Super Rugby table the other day for research or something. I saw the Blue Bulls finished behind the Southern Kings in the table one year.
Hey, stop bringing back bad memories. But anyway, but yeah, just to give you, I mean, some insight with regards to this, we're a tough crowd. I mean, we really, how can I say this? Yeah, man, things are not taken lightly. You can't just become a flash in the pan, for lack of a better word. What are your thoughts, you anyway, with the South African team sweeping this past weekend?
Yeah, the only game that I watched in full was the Bulls at the Dragons. And to be fair, I think the Dragons stood up to the Bulls a lot better than I expected. I really expected the Bulls just to completely trample the Dragons. I thought it was going to be an absolute horror show. Considering this is a team that is competing for the title in the league to the worst team in the league. But the Dragons put up a great fight for most of the game. It wasn't until like the last 5-10 minutes that the Bulls were able to pull away. The Bulls did play some really, really nice rugby at times, for how they're supposed to be so forward orientated. Villy LaRue was pulling some absolute Hollywood balls out. And then when you've got Aronson on the wing, you're always going to be onto a winner in Caelan Moody in the centres as well. I still think that the Bulls maybe could be doing with a new fly half, but I got in trouble last time I said that on here, so I won't be going through that again. But yeah, the Dragons put up a lot better fight than I thought they would, especially in the scrum and the maul defence as well. Yeah. That really surprised me. I think it was a case of, maybe the Bulls weren't that up for that. They brought all their South African stars up because they're really targeting that Leinster game next week, I suspect, which is going to be a huge game. I can't wait for that. But
no, 100%.
I think maybe they were just taking the Dragons a bit for granted in this game. But you know what? The 5 points, job done, move on.
Yeah. Sandbagging from Jake White this past weekend.
Yeah, don't give anything away, guys.
No, exactly. I just want to share something that I liked from the Blue Bulls before you continue. I mean, there was the last play. I think 18 minutes were up on Saturday, and the Blue Bulls were kicking off. Usually, sometimes teams will just kick off deep, and you know what, and hope the opposition will kick the ball out, and then that'll be the end of play. But they still wanted to continue playing. The Blue Bulls, they kicked it short, contestable 10-meter from kickoff, and they contested, they got the ball back, and they won a penalty. They kicked for touch, And now we're into the 81st minute of the game. Mauled, scored a try. I was like, okay, this is a different attitude. I mean, you don't usually see this, especially from the conservative Blue Bulls approach of rugby, Jake White rugby, percentage footy. I was very impressed by this when I saw it last night. We've got a request from Scarlets. Come alive, Scarlets. Let's hear what you got to say. You can go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to talk to Hugh, just give a point, because he sent a nice little tweet out towards the end of that Dragons game where they lost try. So, who was it again that set up that try and scored?
It was Dane Blacker to Steph Hughes to Corey Baldwin.
And who are those three boys?
They're all Scarlets products. They all played for the Scarlets last season.
Nah, I had to chime in when I started talking about the Dragons, because they are essentially...
It's not unusual, Matt, is it? I mean, all of the best players at all the other regions are all Scarlets.
Well, majority of backs, yeah. I mean, we produce too many, scrum halves and back three players. It's just unreal.
Yeah, scrum halves, definitely. So, stat for everybody on the call. The Scarlets have produced more international scrum halves in the last 10 years than England have.
You guys love the English. All right, thank you, mate. Thank you for sharing that. Jade, your thoughts on the Blue Bulls and the Stormers?
Look, I'm going to be honest, and I think Ndabazinto is a big Blue Bull supporter here. I wasn't too impressed with the Bulls' performance yesterday. I think the last 10 minutes, they got the bonus point over the line. I expected him to come out and put a statement down against the Dragons. Although the Dragons punched above their weight at time, they were solid on defense. But for me, I expected more from the Bulls, especially looking at where they are in the table and what they're trying to achieve this season. They're trying to win the URC title. So they're chasing that first spot. And I mean, for me, I just feel that, the Bulls could have came out, could have wrapped up the 4 points, the 5 points earlier. That's how I felt. But going on to the Stormers, guys, every time the Stormers razzle-dazzled yesterday, Edinburgh did not have an answer in defense. Every time Willemse and, not so much LeBok, but Willemse and Atzenberg, the back trio, Zas Evans, got the ball in space. They razzle-dazzled. The Edinburgh team, with all the internationals, could not get into that game yesterday. There's a difference between tempo. Once the Stormers got that tempo, picked up the tempo in that game. The Edinburgh did not have an answer. Even the tries Edinburgh scored was a little bit of soft tries, If you did have a Dion Fourie there, those guys in the team, I think they would have defended a little bit better. But for me, I loved the fluency from the flair from the Stormers yesterday. Razzle dazzle. Some of those tries was absolute world class. I think the one where LeBok kicked the cross kick over. Well done. Simelani, good to see him get a hit out there. I still think he needs more game time. I think Simelani looks, for me, he looks a little bit short of game time and game fitness. But well done to the Stormers yesterday. I love the razzle dazzle yesterday. I like the flair that they displayed yesterday. Was a good watch.
So you reckon Simelani needs a few more outings?
Yeah, I think Simelani, he looks like a player that never had a good preseason, Scoop. Coming from a conditioner, aspect, he looks like a player that didn't have a good preseason. I think he's a little bit short on game time, because remember, the Stormers controlled the tempo yesterday. If other team, matches them in that fast tempo, will Simelani stick on defense? I'm not sure. We're looking at guys like who played 13, like Duplessis, Hatzenberg, Evans. We're looking at Willemse and Gelant and all of those guys there. For me, I think Simelani needs more game time. It's a pity that, they don't have a second competition that, he could get into, maybe like the SA Cup or so, just get a few hits out there, get some confidence, get his running game going. He looks like a player that never had a good preseason or didn't have a preseason. He really looks like that. So I think he really needs 2 or 3 good hits out there, and then he'll be up to speed. What the Stormers wants to achieve. I think for me, Simelani is a quality player. What happened at the Bulls, he'll put behind him, but he needs game time. He needs game time, and that's the only area that he improve his fitness, improve his he match up to the tempo that the Stormers play at.
Okay, fair enough. Hugh, Your thoughts on the Stormers before we get our caller to share their views as well?
Yeah, I've only caught the highlights, but even in the highlights, you can still see that the Stormers, yes, they play incredible, very attractive rugby. You can still see that they take a lot of risks. I just worry that eventually they're going to play against a team, a really top team, that is going to just take advantage of them, the mistakes that they make. And yes, they back themselves to be good enough that if something doesn't come off, they're talented enough and they're good enough to get themselves out of trouble, which they do a lot of the time. But once they get to maybe the playoffs or maybe the latter stages of Europe, who knows? I feel like they're going to take one risk too many. So that's the thing to watch out for the Stormers for me.
Fair. And Bumelelo's question, have you answered that?
I answered it in the chat, but so I got asked which god did the Ospreys offend? Which deity did the Ospreys offend for how unlucky they were against Munster on Friday night? So if anybody didn't see, Munster got 2 intercepts, and then Alex Cuthbert, the Ospreys winger, he had free space in front of him, 10 metres from the line, running with ball in hand to score a try to get a losing bonus and a try bonus, and his hamstring goes and he pulls up and then the ball gets turned over, which was incredibly unlucky and absolutely brutal. But I think what deity was offended, I think God doesn't like 10-man rugby. So I think he's fed up of all this Ospreys 10-man nonsense, and he wants them to chuck it about a bit more.
Fair enough. Reaching out to our caller, Dabezinto, wants to share a few words. You can go ahead, mate.
How's it, gents? How's the scoop? How's it, Jade? Yeah, just chiming in there on what Jade said. As a Blue Bulls fan, I actually was also quite frustrated with that game, particularly with the 22-meter entries. I don't really have the stats with me now, but I was frustrated with how many 22-meter entries the Bulls had that they didn't convert into points. And I also saw the thinking around not taking the threes because we had quite a lot of penalties, but we went for the line out each and every single time. But it was frustrating going into the 22 and not converting that into points. And I'm sure a team like Leinster will probably capitalize on something like that. You know, they won't let something like that slide. I feel like we've been building up the whole season to this Leinster game. The Bulls are 2-0 against Leinster. We're looking for the 3rd game in a row. And I think they will also be watching that game and seeing the lack of execution come try time. I think we had around 3 5-meter scrums, attacking 5-meter scrums that turned into 0 points. I mean, that's 15 points left on the field right there. So that's just my input on that Blue Bulls game.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ndabezi.
Yeah, so just on the stats point of view, I've just looked it up. Bulls 11-22 entries, 2.55 points per entry. Not great, but I would say I don't think that this performance against the Dragons will have any bearing on next week for the Bulls. I genuinely believe that they just kind of rocked up and took the Dragons for granted, and and South African teams supposedly they don't do their best game on tour is not their first. They tend to still be acclimatizing to how cold it is up here and how miserable it is with all the rain and everything. So, yeah, I can understand the frustration with the Blue Bulls, especially with how good they've been this season. But I'd say, don't worry about it for the Leinster game. I think that will be a different story.
Fair enough. Sticking with you, Hugh. Big one for the Scarlets over Benetton, 16-13.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, so last moment try scored by Edwin Swart, formerly, I can't remember who he played for in the Currie Cup. Mark, can you remember who he played for in the Currie Cup? It's where Swart came from.
I need to make him get him to speak as well.
Okay. Well, Mark, look it up in the background while I keep talking. Yeah, so it was, if you look at the stats and things for the game, it was our best forward performance of the entire season by a long way for me. We've been really frustrated with players like Sam Lousy, for example, who we know is an incredibly class player, but we've not been making the most of him. And whether that's because of his own performance or what he's being asked to do in the team. Like he's been playing at blindside for the last few weeks. But he was excellent again in this game. He was back to his best. Alex Craig, who we signed from Gloucester, the Scottish international second row, is absolutely incredible. Probably our player of the season. His stats for the game were absolutely out of this world. For a second row, to have some of the handling stats that he does is pretty remarkable. So I can't understand why he's not in the Scotland squad, to be honest, but happy to have him at the Scarlets. He was a big difference from us. And then Leather Barrow, the young kid who we've got playing on the blind side, is an open side by trade, but on the blind side he was playing last week, and again he was excellent and really put up some amazing stats and made a difference for us. The back line didn't really fire. I think we've got some tweaking to do in the centres. Unfortunately, John Fox Davis, the Welsh and Lions legend, unfortunately, I think he's at the end of his career now, and he's not able to perform quite how he would like. But when you're in the situation that the Scarlets have been in, just any old kind of win is just gold dust at the moment for us. So just delighted with it. And it's not often that you can say that the Scarlets will win because of their pack. We're normally a very ball in hands, using the backs type of team. So yeah, just absolutely delighted with this one.
Yeah, fantastic. Mark, are you ready to answer Hugh's question?
Yeah, what was that about? I must have missed it coming in.
Yeah, Edwin Swart from the Pumas. He played for the Pumas. He was part of the Pumas Currie Cup winning team 2 years ago. I know it because they beat my beloved Griquas in the final.
Ma, I want to hear from you. What do you think our best front row is? Because we started with Matthias and O'Connor on the props, but when Wynne and Sam Wainwright came on, they made a big difference to us, and they kind of changed the game a bit.
Oh, that's a tough one for me, because I'm very much of the mindset of you have to develop, your backups, and then even your third choice players, because you're going to need them at some point. But when on form, and Wynne has started coming back on form, he is undoubtedly our number one. It has only been the last 2-3 games he started to show some of his form that got him on the Lions tour. So I'd say that's really a toss-up at the minute. I mean, you could go either way between him and Matthias. I think Swart is quite lucky at the minute to be involved, because obviously we've got two big players injured at hooker, with Ken Owens and Elias both out. So, I mean, if we're not including injured players, I don't think there's much between Sean Evans and Edwin Swart. And a tight head, I think technically Sam Wainwright is probably the better scrummager, but Harry O'Connor does more on the field. So it is very much a 50-50. It depends on what way they're looking to play. If you want to go for a full-on scrummaging front row, then you have to go Wynne Jones and Sam Wainwright as your props.
Fair enough. Dwayne Peel, Hugh, I mean, what are your thoughts with regards to this man?
Tricky. I mean, we're all happy at the moment because we've just had a win. He's been the head coach of the Scarlets during a very tumultuous time where we've lost a lot of players. We've had a lot of churn in the back room. We've had budget cuts. And this is his first time ever being a head coach, and he's the head coach of his own home region as well. So he's a fan as well as a coach. So it must be really difficult for him. You'd have to say it's not been going well. You'd have to say that the selections have left fans scratching their heads a lot of the time, if not most of the time. We all want him to do well. We all remember what he did for us as a player. He's in his third year at the moment, and it's not been the progression at the rate that we would have liked to have seen. And there are gaps in our game, like our kicking game and in our attack as well. There are things that very clearly need fixing that he hasn't been able to fix. But we know that we're not getting rid of him. We know that he's not going anywhere. We know he's got the full backing of the board. So we just have to stick with him at the moment and just hope that we can get a bit of momentum off of this really gutsy win at the weekend.
Nah, fair enough. Jade, the Sharks. Wow. Ulster felt the
They
bite on
won.
Saturday. Take me through the Sharks and Masuku. And their
Sharks. The Sharks won because we didn't talk much about them, for the past few weeks.
Exactly.
So they won. Now, look, it was a little bit of a messy game. Compared to the other South African teams that played, it was, for me, it was maybe because of the Sharks' league position that, I had this feeling about this game, but I knew the Sharks would beat Ulster. I thought if they can't beat Ulster, then really, Plummy's got some big, big problems there. I like the two young kids they brought in, Hooker and the first five, can't get to his name now. But, even that Ethan Hooker, he played like a guy that's a seasoned pro. He didn't look like a rookie in that team. Unfortunately, what happened to George Cronje, in the number 8 in the start of the game, we don't like to see those things on the field, unfortunately, but it's part of the game, I guess. But once Ox and Koch came on, the Sharks had dominance at scrum time, and that for them was a big, one of the big turning points because Ulster couldn't get back into the game. I'd just like to ask you this because, he watched Ulster a lot. What is the reason for Kipso's regression at Ulster? Because he doesn't look near to the world-class Lucid we've seen at the World Cup playing for the Stormers and for the Boks. He looks a mere shadow of himself.
Got no idea. I've really got no idea. Things haven't been going well at Ulster, and you gather that the players weren't happy with the previous coach. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like the food or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I don't see him staying longer there. I think he might come back to South Africa. That's the rumors, he might come back to South Africa. I don't see good props going to Japan, Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any, world-class props going to Japan. So I think South Africa or France will be his best hope.
Oof. Toughy. But looking at the Sharks, that game obviously took a while to kick off. It took a while to really, rejuvenate some excitement from the fans themselves. The scoreline is not so high either. The brand of rugby was probably at medium level, because some of the tries scored against the run of play, too many errors as well within the game itself. What's your overall picture? Because they had Bonambi is back. They've got Ox now. They've got Itzebeth. They've got Lucanio Arm. They've got Fassi. Chituka is there as well now. They've got the players. Masuku now has really, tried his best in the couple of games that he's gotten, but we're seeing some light at the end of this particular tunnel when we look at the Sharks' backs in terms of igniting that back line. But what is it that they need now to really perform at a highest level? Look at how the Stormers are performing at home. Look at how the Blue Bulls are performing at home and away. The Sharks have been at home for a while now, and it's really, I don't know. It's like they have to really dig deep to grind out a win. Even if they're facing maybe a poor side, but they still need to really graft and really get into the dark areas or dark rooms to really get the right performance or gel or get the right structures in place. Yeah, I don't know if you're getting my point here on this particular topic.
Yeah, I get your point, Scoop. I get your point. They've been really, if you just look at a guy like Eben Etzebeth and Lucania Arm's performances this season, Etzebeth, I can't believe that we're looking at this guy and his performances for the Sharks and we're saying this is South Africa's player of the year because that's not the Etzebeth we know and we've become accustomed to. That's not the best lock in the world, that we've been seeing every year in, year out, dominating. Yesterday, Scrum Fly have asked me, is Etzebeth playing? That was at 40 minutes while the game was on, He hasn't been really the Eamon that we know. But what I like, what they did, they brought Esterhuizen back, they brought Trevor back for next year, they brought a few guys, got a few squad guys in, Jaden Hendricks come in. So maybe with that, that there's a few more guys, fringe players, good fringe players, pushing the likes of Etzebeth, the likes of Bongi. Maybe that will give them a spring. But like I said, the recruitment portfolio, the way they recruited, the way they looked at players, bringing in, just going for big names, that was wrong because they didn't recruit with a plan. They didn't look who they have, what youngsters do they have coming in. Because a guy like Ethan Hooker, for example, who we saw has some promise at 12, right? Now, next season, you have Esterhuizen coming back, and you've got there as well, and you've got a few other centers there as well. When does he get his opportunity? So he might just regress. You need to look at who is there and who's coming through, what you have to work with before you recruit and buy players. You can't just go ahead and yes, everybody would love Eben Etzebeth, Lukanya Bongi Benambi, those guys in your team. But you also got to look at the younger players you got coming through. Who do you have there? What do we do? Instead of buying 6 or 7 world-class or quality big-name players, buy 3 or 4 or 5 and look at the youngsters coming through and, build them, because those youngsters, they're the guys that's going to play, the majority of the games. Where you're looking at your senior Bok pros that, they only maybe play, what do they play? Scoop, or I think they play, 60% maybe of the games. So I'm looking at that aspect as well. The recruitment for me, Neil Powell, they've got it wrong for the past 2 years. They never got in those players, those quality Sharks players that we knew that fit, that understand the franchise. I think they lost their identity as well as a franchise. But let's see now. Let's see how they move on from this, because the season is a write-off. They're willing to give Plumtree another season. So let's see what they do next year. But I mean, if you look at the props alone, they have Ox, and they have Trevor, they have what's this guy's name, Vincent Koch as well. That's 3 props. You're going to dominate at scrum time. There's no reason not to dominate at scrum time. But besides the game yesterday, they've been struggling.
Don't forget the great guy. What's his name? Former Springbok as well. Kuni Oosthuizen.
Kuni Oosthuizen, yeah. No, not Kuni. I mean, Kuni as well. I can never forget the great college guy. I stay in Bloemfontein. The last time you slagged off a great college guy, and I had to watch my back walking in the streets, But it's for me. They the recruitment scoop. They need to. I don't know if maybe in this first year, when he's got the gig as director of rugby, Neil Powell seems to be making a lot of mistakes. So let's see how he fixes his mistakes, because he's got the budget, he's got the money. Let's see how he fixes mistakes. You can't just go ahead, what I'm trying to say, go ahead and buy any old Tom, Dick and Harry out there because they are good players. If you have enough players there, relax, build with those players. You don't need to shop every time,
No, fair. Hugh, do you care to chime in there, or you are good with the Sharks?
No, nothing really to add. It's a bit like the Scarlets, really. Any kind of win is a good win for the Sharks at the moment. Good crowd. You have to say 16,000 people showing up to watch the Sharks after what they've been like this season. You have to say fair play to those guys.
No, fair enough. Sticking with the crowds, that was my next topic again. We've seen the news come out this past week about the attendance or the audience within URC. Great numbers. I think it was, over 3 million plus? I don't know if you have the stats.
2.97.
To be exact. I mean, that's fantastic for the competition, right? As much as people probably don't like the fact that South African teams have joined URC, I mean, South African teams have made a massive impact on the eyeballs, number one. And I think this will create a lot of revenue going forward, because it's probably now one of the most marketable competitions in the world, to be honest. And I don't see French Top 14 competing with this type of competition going forward. South Africa, you've got Wales, you've got Ireland, you've got Scotland. I mean, that's quite formidable, to be honest, in terms of moving forward, growing the competition numbers. It's probably going to be the next Premier Soccer League of rugby. What are your thoughts regarding these numbers, Hugh, and obviously how good is this for the competition itself?
Well, it's fantastic, and it is pretty much entirely down to the South Africans, you have to say. The Irish are getting good crowds, and they always do. Munster are getting great crowds, and Leinster always get great crowds as well. Also, shout out to the Italians as well, because Benetton are looking to extend their ground, because they're selling out every week. They've only got a 5,000 capacity grounds, but they're looking to extend it because they can't fit all the people into it. And Zebra got 3,500 people this weekend to watch them play Leinster. Now, that might not sound very much in the grand scheme of things, but Zebra having crowds of less than 2,000 has been quite normal up until very recently. So even that's big strides forward. And we saw the sellout in Italy for the Six Nations game just gone, and how well that team went. So fingers crossed that's going to keep growing. I think that's the exciting thing about the URC, is that it's the league that's growing. I think the top 14 is growing still in revenue, and it's going very well. I'm really looking forward to the game tonight between Bordeaux and Toulouse. Can't wait for that. But yeah, from going back to the South Africans and the URC, we put a video out on the Pirate Rugby ages ago, just after Christmas, saying that the South Africans were turning the URC into the world's biggest rugby competition. And we got so much stick for it. We got loads of abuse for it. We said people called us liars. People were telling us that it didn't count. Whenever it comes to South Africa in rugby, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, if you praise them, people come and say, "Oh, it doesn't count because of this. Because the tickets are cheap. Because they play the games the wrong way. Because they're playing in this big stadium. Because there's 60 million of them or something." There's always a reason that South Africa doesn't count. I'm sorry, guys, it does count. And it's incredible at the moment. The Storm has got 23,000 people for a game against Edinburgh just yesterday. That's incredible. 23,000 people. Do you know how many clubs get 23,000 every week? I'm telling you, not many anywhere. So, yeah, it's just brilliant. These records that we've seen broken and fallen this weekend or this season, they're going to get broken again next season. I can promise you that. So it's just fantastic to see and exciting to see where this league is going to go next, because I do think there is change coming to the league in terms of participants.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that is yet. But all of the noises seem to be about the league growing in some way. So look forward to see what that will be.
Ooh, and I think Exeter might be one of those teams, or I don't know, an English side at some point. Jade, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, we've become accustomed to these big crowds in South Africa. I mean, for me personally, sometimes I watch the African teams play, and I remember back, when Super was in its peak, maybe 2011 to 15, before the mass exodus, we were used to these capacity 30, 40,000 crowds, people at the stadium every game. So after COVID, it took some time to get these guys back to the stadium, but it's filling up. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we got that Loftus game where the Stormers and the Bulls played and it was sold out. So it was actually nice to see South Africans coming back to, to the stadium again. I mean, Stormers has always been a capacity or, close to capacity every time they play, because they've got a big brand, and the people in the Western Cape love the Stormers, and the same with the Bulls in Gauteng. I just love, for them to make a plan with Ellis Park. For me, it's sad sometimes to see where Ellis Park is situated, and obviously, a lot of people don't want to drive out that side of Joburg, not because of the way the Lions is playing, but I mean, it's just for maybe they don't feel safe going to Ellis Park, traveling from that area of Joburg back home. But yeah, it's just sad. I hope the Lions get sort something out there, because I mean, they're all missing out on the Lions is playing good rugby as well. So for me, I mean, we've become accustomed to this with South Africa. When you are speaking now, Zebras, 3,000 supporters. I think in South Africa, we get in club games, club rugby, we get 2, 3, maybe 10,000 people at the club game now and then, So we love our rugby in South Africa, and we always support it. There was a time after COVID where it was worrying, but I mean, it's back. I mean, there's no reason for South Africans not to go to the games anymore. Their teams are winning, and I mean, the Boks also won the World Cup as well. That's why you see the Bok tickets sell out in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, the Bok tickets are sold out. So yeah, I think really in South Africa, they're in a good space and they're enjoying the game.
Yeah, and most importantly, after this weekend, South African teams 2, Irish teams 0. So South Africans have already gone ahead in that department.
You don't learn. You don't listen, right? You do not listen. You do not learn, Scoop. The Irish are still going to come out to get you.
Well. Well. Guys, news also coming last week. World Rugby announced the new law application guidelines. Were revealed last week. So basically, the use it element when it comes to the caterpillars or the breakdown in the caterpillars, and then the break foot, or that's regarding scrum time, and the water carriers. It's just a matter of speeding the game up in terms of the use it element. So once a ball is available and can be played, once a referee says use it, you've got 5 seconds then to use that ball. And then the break foot, obviously from last season, we know this. Once the referee calls set and the shoulders of each of the front rows are engaged, then the break foot can be removed by the hookers. And then the strictness of water carriers, when they can come on and when they are not allowed to come on, because apparently they've seen that a lot of teams have kind of neglected that particular law, and now you see water carriers all over the show, and it's kind of delaying play because they have to run off the pitch, and then we can resume play in that regard. Also, Uni Antonio, who initially retired from international rugby after 2023 World Cup, is being persuaded to change his mind by the French coaching staff. So we might see him continue playing for France for the next cycle until 2027. But obviously, that's still a developing story. Before we go to Shithousery Moment of the Week, I just wanted to put Hugh and Jade on the spot here, looking at the fact that the last round of Six Nations took place last week. I just wanted to see from the top of your head or the top of your mind, who is the player of the tournament from your guys' perspective. I can mention by the names that come up from my side. One is Ben Oils, Jack McGrath, Jason Gibson Park are the three people that stand out for me. Hugh, starting off with you, who do you think should be named as the player of the Guinness Six Nations this year?
I think James Lowe, the winger for Ireland, his stats in every single game were absolutely ridiculous. Short of joining the forwards and pushing in the scrums and jumping in the line out, I don't think he could have done any more in any game. He's so integral to Ireland's game plan with the huge kicking range that he has. They've really developed that specific tactic of giving it to him and getting up the field. He can do all that. He can do all this extra stuff. He's big, powerful, can carry, can kick, but then he can also finish as well. And he's got the gas and he can do all the normal wingers stuff. So I thought, other nominations, I think it has to be someone from Ireland. The other nomination would be Tyburn, whose stats are absolutely ridiculous, kind of like the opposite to James Lowe in that whilst James Lowe can do loads of forwards stuff, Tyburn can do loads of back stuff. He's a ridiculous player. He's a joke of a player. But I think just James Lowe sneaks it for me.
Fair enough. Jade? Earth Tube.
Yeah, Ben stood out for me. Obviously, had a massive season for England. But I believe now you should get every time with the ball on door. The person that win it will ever won anything at club time or etc. So I always believe that if your team wins the Six Nations, I would like you to, most probably all play in the final. So I'd like that player to win it. Dennis Byrne was one that stood out for me. I really, really enjoyed, the first two games especially, but then he went a little bit flat in terms of those performances. I think Ireland also went a little bit flat after the first two games. But being a Blues supporter, I have to give it to a former Blues boykie, James Gibson Park. I think if he doesn't play for Ireland, they don't have a like-for-like replacement. I think he's key to that team, and he was solid the Six Nations. So for me, it's James Gibson Park.
Okay, fair enough, gentlemen. Fair enough. So now the moment we've been waiting for. Shithousery Moment of the Week. We've got three options between. So first option is last week we saw former Welsh captain Sam Warburton complain about two Scottish rugby players, so two senior members of the Scotland rugby team who turned up to an after-match event in their full match kit. So they didn't shower, they didn't change. They were still wearing the same match kit when they went into the event, wearing slip-slops or flip-flops, if you prefer, swinging beer from a can in an event where you're supposed to be wearing suits and looking very sharp and suave. So that's the first one. Second one is basically Simon Rauluni also tweeting Sam Warburton. Basically asking him if he still supported the concept of promotion relegation. This is after Wales got the wooden spoon in Six Nations. So yeah, that's the second one. And then the third one is the Georgian Twitter rugby handle. Georgian Twitter rugby handle inviting Welsh rugby to a matchup via Twitter. So this is one of the wildest things I've ever seen in rugby. Rugby being a very conservative sport, you don't usually see this type of banter going around. It's usually around football. But yeah, I thought these three were good options. What do you think, Hugh? Which one goes? Which one will you vote for? 1, 2, or 3?
Has to be number 3, Georgia, for me. I think that's great. I watched Georgia play Portugal in the Rugby Europe final, and they absolutely blew Portugal away. They were clearly a class above in that competition yet again this year. I wouldn't want to play them if I was Wales, and guess what? I am Wales. So, yeah, worrying times. I think I was about to say definitely play them in Cardiff, but last time we played them in Cardiff, we lost. I mean, we beat them quite comfortably in the World Cup.
Yeah.
But then Georgia have got a thing with World Cups. Georgia never show up to World Cups. Yeah. So,
fair.
Yeah, worrying times. But then the WRU tweeted back, "We'll be in touch." So that looks like it might be happening now. So, okay. Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, it's good to see, obviously, some humor between the two sides.
And I think even if it is all staged, and it was you tweet this and then we'll tweet that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I would say I can't see why the WRU would agree to do that, because they only look stupid off the back of it. But
yeah, true.
Fair. I think rugby needs more of that. I'm campaigning for rugby to be more like WWE. So we need more things like this.
All right, WrestleMania 54 incoming. Jade, your choice?
Yeah. We actually must do ones that happened the weekend as well. I mean, Jaden Hendricks' shithouse yesterday when he kicked the poles, drinking water, taking his time, and then, kicking over in the last 20 seconds. That was a real shithouse from him. And then I saw it was Matt Moore yesterday, former Aussie centre, fly-off, tweeting the log, the Super Rugby log, with the Crusaders being bottom, and saying that New Zealand can't handle having 5 teams in the competition. They can only handle 4. But yeah, it was also shithousery yesterday from those two. But for me, it has to be Uncle Phil. Simon. I just love him. The way he went after Simon, Sam Warburton there, and asking regarding, the promotion relegation. I just love Uncle Phil's tweets. He's awesome. So I'll go with that one.
So it's 1-1. Okay. 1-1 in this shithousery week. But yeah, that brings us to an end, gentlemen, of our great show. Thank you, Hugh, and thank you, Jade. You guys, you can find our show on Spotify and Apple Podcast. It will be aired as soon as in the next 2 to 3 hours, I think. And then from there, we will share some clips during the week of what was said in the pod. Hard-hitting hot takes on the rugby scoop. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you, M, for contribution. Thank you, Nabezindo, for contribution. Bumelelo also, thank you for contributing with the questions on our timeline. Thanks, Jade. Thanks, Hugh. Have a fantastic Sunday and a great week ahead.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Coop. Thanks, Crabbing Fly Off. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, guys.